So, just about a year ago, I did a review on the first season of Beastars. Admittedly, I was put off by it originally as it was 3D animated, which has always looked weird in anime, at least in my opinion, as well as the fact that it was just an all anthropomorphic animal cast. Everything just seemed like it wouldn't be my cup of tea. But I bit the bullet, watched it, and ended up really enjoying myself. So naturally, as many others were, I was excited to hear that a season 2 was announced, as the ending to the first season left me wanting much more. So today, I'm bringing you all my review on the second season of Beastars, and will be letting you all know if it's worth watching. To be honest, if you watched the first season, I'm sure you don't need some random guy on YouTube telling you to continue this series, as you were probably already planning on doing that. But for the people that really don't know what I thought about this season, or for those that just weren't as captivated by the first season as I was, this is going to be for you. Also, I'm going to let you know here that there are spoilers throughout this video, so this is the one warning I'll be giving for that. And with all that said, we can hop right into it. Before we talk about any major story plot points, I just have to talk about both the opening and ending. Now, the opening from the first season was just a masterclass in uniqueness on top of just being such a banger to listen to. So naturally, any opening theme to follow it would have big shoes to fill. And in all honesty, I think the second season's opening filled those shoes decently well. Now, I'm not going to pretend that it's a superior opening, because that's just not the case. But it really does hold its own. The song is a bop, and the visual style is just really on point. The only gripe that I have with it would just be the fact that there's a lot of focus on both Legoshi and Haru in this opening, but the season itself doesn't really focus on the relationship too much at all. I mean, of course stuff does happen, but it just would have been interesting if they had decided to allude to other plot points throughout the opening a little more than they chose to. I don't know, just a random tidbit. Also, the ending theme is top tier. The four that the first season had were fine, but none that truly stood out. Season 2, on the other hand, just blew me away. Such a beautiful sounding song with just absolutely stunning visuals to go alongside it. Also, the ending gave me exactly what I said I wanted from the opening, but I'll go more into detail with that later. I think I should stop going on about the openings and endings and get into the actual review now. So, Season 2 wastes no time and just picks up right where we left off last season. Louis has been missing for 2 months, Tem's murder has been unsolved, and Legoshi's relationship with Haru is still in a weird spot. In the first episode, we get a little bit more of that breadcrumb trail leading to who is responsible for killing Tem. We see Jack wandering the halls at night when he suddenly hears a noise. He stops and notices a can labeled "For Tem" rolled to his feet from the lecture hall where he perished. Just beyond the crack in the doors, we see a glimpse at a vortex of ice spinning about, which naturally freaks Jack out, causing him to run off and naturally tell his classmates the next day. They seem reluctant to believe in him, but after discussing the rumors of ghosts and Louis' sudden disappearance, they all become a bit more engaged with his tale. The credence among the students only increases after 2 more students encounter the phenomenon in this episode. Now, it's quite obvious that this creature is a snake. Can't believe Orochimaru decided to mess with all these poor animals. Louis finally returns later in this episode, but only to turn in his resignation letter and to point out that he and Legoshi have essentially switched places, with Louis now basking in the darkness, fighting in his own way. Getting back to the main plot of this episode, this ghost that's freaking everyone out is seemingly messing with Legoshi and even ends up encountering him. But of course, at the very end of the episode. Luckily, this isn't a weekly review, so I'll just move on. The next episode doesn't immediately go into Legoshi's encounter, but instead an impassioned speech from Cherryton's headmaster about why they hadn't chosen a Beastar in nearly 5 years. He goes on about the pressures that comes with that, and he doesn't just want to force a student to become a hero. This is met with criticism, as it pointed out that his student was devoured and the perp is likely just enjoying their school life, putting other students in danger. Now we get the big snake reveal. Oh. And yeah, it actually is Orochimaru's voice actor. That was pretty cool. Talk about being typecast. This large snake is revealed to be Rokume, the sole security guard of the school. They profess that they're a fan of Legoshi's, as well as the fact that they have been unable to track down Temp's killer, so they request his assistance. Legoshi accepts and finds his resolve to find the killer and bring them to justice. Meanwhile, Louis finds his resolve in taking advantage of the Leo group, or really carnivores in general, in an attempt to redefine how the world views herbivores and carnivores. In the third episode, we get a bit more insight into how Louis became the leader of the Leo group, and the short version is that it just sort of happened. He was prepared to either be eaten or to kill himself. Obviously, neither of those things happened. But disturbingly enough, we watched him eat meat as a sort of hazing from the lions. So that was pretty messed up. At the very end, Legoshi deals with more horror relationship problems and decides that he wants to protect her from a distance. While lost in thoughts about the path that he is taking, we see a giant figure lurk behind him in the final scene. The fourth episode kicks off with him getting battered and kidnapped by whom he suspects is Temp's killer. With the brute strength of his assailant being painfully clear, Legoshi realizes he needs to go away for a while in order to get stronger. Otherwise, the next time he encounters them, that he'd for sure be killed. He heads off for the dark market and requests that Gohin teach him how to fight. The giant panda initially refuses, but eventually comes around. Let's see what else goes on. We've got a strip club scene, so yeah, there's that. More eating lions from Louis? Great, all really messed up stuff. But at least he was shown some compassion from one of the lions. Next episode has a large amount of Juno talking to Louis. That never really feels like it amounts to much throughout the rest of the season, but perhaps it builds up to something more later in the story. Legoshi makes his return to Cherryton with a new book, and honestly, he just looks so ridiculous. But it's what he needed to do in order to get that training from Gohin. What is this training, you ask? Well, it's him resisting the urge to eat a big thing of meat that he's locked away with. Brutal stuff. Back at the school, Legoshi is tormented by an underclassman named Pina, who was actually in a previous episode, but just didn't really act in a notable way, so I kinda just forgot to mention him. Although he does play a major role in the story for this season, so that's kinda my bad. His role, you ask? Why, it's to be completely antagonistic to nearly the entire cast, and that remains true for the rest of his appearances. Honestly, Pina is so hateable, I kinda wished he'd get eaten. Also, Louis, come on. I get you don't want to go to school, but I don't think you should be pulling guns on your dad. At the halfway point, we're just getting a bit more of the same. Louis, Leo group stuff, and Legoshi tracking down Temp's killer. Although, Legoshi is a bit more compelling here, as he's trying to figure out who he fought by checking out Juno's teeth. I didn't really get how knowing what a female wolf's teeth are like was valuable to him, as he very clearly fought someone that was neither a woman and more than likely not a wolf. So it just felt a bit odd. Fast forward a bit, Legoshi gives a burial for all the meat he's trained with at the dark market, proposes to Haru out of the blue, gets rejected. He also realizes in a game of tug-of-war that he's gotten weaker, giving him a lot of conflict on the progress that he supposedly made. I think we can speed things up a bit here so we can quickly get into the real meat and potatoes of Beastars. But I do have to give a huge shout out to this anteater. Just straight up gets his arm ripped off. This scene caught me off guard super hard, and I just didn't really know how to react. It was kind of a mixture of crazy, scary, and even a little funny. Well, in the process of taking that anteater to the nurse, we have Legoshi being helped up by fellow clubmate Riz, a gigantic bear. As they deliver the disarmed anteater, Legoshi just straight up confronts the bear about being the one that ate Tem. The music build-up during this confrontation is just superb. Honestly, it's probably one of the best soundtracks I've heard in an anime. Then, just as shit's about to go down, that bastard Pina comes through with his smarmy attitude and surprisingly diffuses the situation. We later learn that Riz, because of his gigantic stature, has to take muscle atrophy pills because of how dangerous he'd be without them, causing him severe side effects. The only cure to this is, funnily enough, honey. This ties in how he ended up murdering Tem. Essentially, they became close, the friendship made him feel like he no longer needed to take his medication, he went crazy and ended up eating Tem in what he thought was them becoming as close as you could possibly get with someone, by having them be a part of you. Yikes. As Legoshi continues his training and Louis falls farther into the underworld of society, the two actually have the chance to meet again. Legoshi fears that the Leo group has corrupted his senpai, but the reality is that he ultimately chose this path for himself. In this goodbye to Louis, he let him know that he found Tem's killer, and that his strength and nobility was needed at the school. The tension continues to grow as Riz purposely tries to aggravate Legoshi, knowing they're currently in a stalemate. Steadily approaching the climax, we get more minor relationship drama with Legoshi and Haru. But more importantly, we get Riz's threat to Pina that both he and Legoshi are becoming an issue for him, and if they continue to defile his friendship with Tem, that he'd have to kill Legoshi and eat Pina. On the Louis side of things, his right-hand man, Ibuki, tells one of his subordinates to kill him if he ever turns on the boss. Just real solid tension from every angle. Even more so is the mini fight we got between Legoshi and Riz. Man, when those trumpets kick in, I just get so hyped. Maybe that's the Hoenn fanboy in me leaking out, but it's whatever. Trumpets are pretty great. As we reach the penultimate episode and gear up for the final showdown, Legoshi goes on a real psychedelic trip after eating a bug, which are apparently one of the only creatures that isn't human-like in this world. Legoshi has always had such inner conflict with his desires to eat meat, so having to turn to eating even a bug has filled him with deep regret. However, Hallucination Moth makes him feel a bit better about his transgressions as it speaks to him about respect for life. Once Legoshi awakens from his trip, his fur magically grows back and has the desire to show Louis his resolve, in drag naturally. He finally tells Louis who killed Tem, and requests that he show up for his duel against him, as he wants nothing more than the person whom he admired the most to be there to see how he lived, or at the very least, to see how he dies. Much to his dismay, Louis refuses. In spite of that, Legoshi takes his leave, but not without telling Louis the when and where. However, these words would stick with Louis as he decides to quit the Leo group in order to be by Legoshi's side. As the two carnivores prepare to throw down, Louis has Ibuki take him to the side of the battle. As Ibuki escorts him there, he reflects on his time with Louis as the head of the Leo group, and how he's changed him. Remember when I said I'd touch on the ending theme earlier? Well, now is finally the time. The drive the two took together is basically just that. Seeing this scene play out was just so awesome, and I can imagine was exciting for manga readers to see when they first saw the visuals for the ending. Anyhow, getting back into it, Ibuki needed to close out his relationship with the young boss in the only way he could, forcing Louis to shoot him or be eaten. In the end though, it would be Free who ends up shooting and killing him, keeping the promise he made. Now with these ties severed, Free tells Louis to never return to the dark market, otherwise he'd eat him, making Ibuki's death a vain one. And now, what we've all been waiting for, a battle between beasts. Who do you have your money on? Hope it's not Legoshi, because he just gets his ass beat. He does manage to get Riz to take a break to tell him about the devouring in order to buy time, which works for a little bit, but Riz decides the fight to the death needed to continue. Thankfully, Louis shows up, distracting Riz long enough for Legoshi to hit him with a surprise attack and to hide with Louis for a bit longer. During Legoshi's conversation with Louis, they both come to the realization that Legoshi can't win without eating meat, so Louis offers him his leg. Though he has major conflict with doing this, he does indeed end up eating his leg. Not what I was expecting. Also, what I was not expecting, Legoshi instantly got jacked and gave off Super Saiyan vibes, in all honesty. Now I was expecting a long, drawn-out badass fight, and instead it ended with a single punch to the gut, and Legoshi wishing Riz a Happy New Year. Yeah, that was kinda baffling. In the end, Riz ends up in jail, Legoshi gets a criminal record for eating Louis' leg, then decides to quit school. Also, Haru kinda breaks up with Legoshi, I think? I don't know, the dynamics of their relationship was really weird this entire season. It definitely wasn't the shining star that it was last year, that's for sure. So overall, what were my thoughts on Season 2 of Beastars? I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Honestly, significantly more captivating than the first season. Sure, there may have been some weird things throughout, like Legoshi going through all the training just to end up eating meat anyways, his relationship with Haru, and even just small things like the snake security guard being around for like half an episode. Would have loved to see more of that character, but oh well. But despite those few flaws, I thought it was a nearly perfect show. Pacing was always wonderful, the music was tremendous, and the visuals were top-notch. I dare say, it was even better looking than the first season. So, was it worth watching? I think it's a very obvious and emphatic yes. The character development for Legoshi is everything you want in your MC, even if it could be confusing at times. And having a real true focus on progressing an interesting plot point is always appreciated. I don't know exactly where Beastars goes from here, but I will say that I really do look forward to seeing more, if a third season is in the cards. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that though. Anyhow, what did you all think of Beastars Season 2? Did you like it? Think it was alright? Maybe you even hated it? I'm really interested in hearing all your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you all next time.